I'm Robin. I remember sitting in my car, the engine off, the dashboard clock reading 8:57 p.m. The side street was quiet, and I could hear the faint music from the bar down the block. It was like a distant pulse, a reminder of the life happening just a short distance away. But inside this car, it was just me, sitting with my hands in my lap, looking at the brick wall of the building across the alley. Just a little while ago, I was at a birthday party I'd planned for myself at Corkwood, a wine bar in Plaza Midwood. It was supposed to be a celebration, a moment for me to finally take center stage. But then, in the middle of the party, my mother, Amelia, stood up and said the words that would change everything: "We never really loved you." Not the way a parent should. I didn't cry. I just sat there, processing the shock. I thought about my grandmother's words: "The truth always finds a way out." For so long, I'd seen it as a warning, but now, sitting in this car, I realized it was more like a door opening. Let me take you back to the beginning. I'm an event planner at a boutique firm in Miami. I'm really good at my job, making sure other people's important moments go perfectly. It's ironic, considering my own life has been a bit of a mess. It all started on a Tuesday in January. I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by open browser tabs. There was a vendor portal for a spring wedding I was coordinating, a PDF of the venue's floor plan, a Google Doc with the couple's seating chart, and my parents' insurance company's online customer portal. I'd been on hold for 22 minutes, trying to help my mother, Amelia, reset a password she'd locked herself out of 3 times that month. The hold music was a soft jazz melody that looped every 45 seconds. I was in the middle of writing an email to the florist about centerpiece dimensions when the insurance rep, a guy named Tom, finally picked up. He walked me through the reset process, which took about 4 minutes. I thanked him and hung up. Then I finished the email to the florist and texted my mother. Password reset. You'll get an email with the new login. Save it this time, please. She replied 4 minutes later, "Thank you, honey. You're so good at this stuff." My coffee had been cold for an hour by then. I'd poured it at 8:15, and it was now 9:47. In those 92 minutes, I'd answered 6 emails, responded to 2 vendor calls about an upcoming corporate dinner, confirmed the linen order for a wedding in April, reminded my father, Henry, via text that his cholesterol medication needed to be refilled before Thursday, and emailed my mother her grocery list for Sunday dinner. She'd probably cancel it on Saturday, like she often did, saying she was too tired. Just then, my phone buzzed with a calendar notification. "Your birthday is in 10 months. Would you like to plan an event?" I stared at it, looking out the window at the busy streets of Miami. People were rushing around, going about their lives. I typed back, "Yes," and set my phone down. I knew I needed to tell you about my mother. Amelia is 52 years old, and she's the kind of person who always has to be in the center of things. She's not a bad person, at least not in an obvious way. She fed me, clothed me, and came to my school events. From the outside, our family looked perfect. We lived in a nice house in a suburb of Miami. My father worked in finance, and I was a successful event planner. But on the inside, it was a different story. My mother needed to be consulted on every decision I made. It wasn't just asking for advice, it was like she had to be involved in every step. When I was 23, I made my first decision without her approval. I rented an apartment on my own. The silence I got from her for 3 days was deafening. It was like she was punishing me for not including her. My father, Henry, is 53. He's a quiet man, and he's always gone along with my mother's decisions. He loves me, but he's never stood up to her. He's always chosen peace over confrontation. That evening, I called my best friend, Lily. We've been friends since we were in college. She's the kind of person who can't stand pretending things are okay when they're not. I told her about my day, the insurance call, the grocery list, and the cold coffee. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "You know that thing where you keep pouring from a cup?" At some point, you're just pouring air. I knew exactly what she meant. I told her I'd set a birthday reminder. She asked what kind of party I was thinking about. I said it was going to be mine, not a family party. She just said, okay, and I knew she understood. Over the next few months, I had a few more run-ins with my mother. 3 years ago, I organized Thanksgiving. I planned the menu, ordered the turkey from a local farm because my mother had mentioned she liked free-range turkeys, and coordinated all the side dishes. But when we were finishing the main course, my mother said, "I'm so relieved Robin finally found something stable." I wasn't sure she would. I didn't say anything, even though I'd been working steadily since I graduated and had been promoted twice. 14 months ago, I told my parents I'd been promoted to senior event coordinator. My father said, "Congratulations, sweetheart," and I could tell he meant it. But my mother said, "Just make sure work doesn't become your whole life, honey. Men might not like that." I was 27 at the time, and I wasn't even thinking about men. 6 weeks before my birthday, on a Wednesday afternoon in August, I was in a client consultation. My client, a woman named Ava, was getting married in April, and it was a $45,000 event. She was a great client, organized and decisive, and she'd referred 2 other clients to our firm. I was showing her the revised seating chart when my mother walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was wearing a bright pink blouse and carrying a basket of flowers. She said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were with someone. I just wanted to drop off these flowers I picked up." I tried to ask her to wait outside, but she started talking to Ava, showing her pictures of a wedding I'd done for a neighbor's daughter. Ava was polite, but after 4 minutes, she moved our meeting to the following week. The next Monday, she called to say she decided to go with another event planner. I lost $45,000 in business because of my mother. That night, I called Lily and told her what happened. She was furious. I looked at the birthday reminder on my phone. I'd had it open since January. I decided then that I was going to plan my birthday party properly, the way I planned other people's events. A few weeks later, I got an email from a firm called Sterling Events. They were based in San Francisco and were offering me a senior director position. The salary was 40% higher than what I was making, and there was a relocation package. I sat on the email for 2 days, thinking about it. On a Saturday morning, I went to a coffee shop near my apartment and opened the housing listings in San Francisco. I'd been to San Francisco once for a conference, and I remembered the beautiful views and the unique atmosphere. I found a 1-bedroom apartment on Castro Street. It had a large window facing the street, and there was a coffee shop right around the corner. I called the landlord, asked my questions, and submitted an application. On Sunday evening, I got the approval. I signed the lease digitally, submitted the deposit, and wrote the San Francisco address in my planner. On Monday morning, I called Sterling Events and accepted the position. Then I called Lily. She was shocked. "You're moving to San Francisco? And you're telling me 4 days after the fact?" she said. I told her I needed to think. I started planning my birthday party. The venue was Corkwood, a wine bar I'd scouted a few months ago. It was perfect for a private party. The guest list was 30 people, all my friends and colleagues. My mother and father were on the list as guests, not as organizers. My mother called a few times to offer help with the party setup and decorations. I told her the venue took care of everything. She didn't seem happy about it, but she said she'd see me on the 14th. The night before the party, I packed a box of books I wouldn't need for the next month. I sat on my couch, sipping a cup of tea, and thought about nothing in particular. I went to bed at 10:15 and slept for 8 hours straight. I was ready for the party. I arrived at Corkwood at 6:15. Everything was set up perfectly. The music was playing, the wine flights were on the tables, and the room looked warm and inviting. My friends started arriving in 2s and 3s. Marcus, my friend who my mother didn't like because he's very outspoken, was the first to arrive. He hugged me and said I looked like I'd made a decision. By 7:30, all 30 guests were there. The room was filled with laughter and conversation. Lily arrived at 7:20 and found me at the bar. She ordered a glass of wine and said, "You good?" I said, "Yes," and she nodded. My parents arrived at 7:22. My mother was wearing a very formal dress, much more formal than the venue called for. She walked in, looking around the room, trying to find someone she knew. But everyone there was my friend, and she didn't recognize anyone. For the next hour, I moved around the room, making sure everyone was having a good time. At 8:30, we cut the birthday cake. Marcus made a toast, and it was short and to the point. Then, at 8:41, I saw my mother push back her chair. My body tensed up before my mind even registered what was happening. She stood up and raised her voice. "Can I just have everyone's attention for a moment?" she said. She started talking about how everyone was telling me how wonderful I was, and then she said those words, "We never really loved you." Not the way a parent should. The room went completely silent. I looked at her, and I saw the fear in her eyes. She'd come here to take something back, to try and regain control. I stood up slowly, set down my fork and plate, and said, "Thank you for the honesty." Then I picked up my jacket and walked to the door. I sat in my car, thinking about everything that had just happened. I thought about my father's face. He didn't seem surprised. He'd known something was coming. My phone started lighting up with calls and texts. My father, my mother, my colleagues, and even some cousins. I didn't answer any of them. I drove to Lily's apartment. She was already home. She made tea, and we sat at her kitchen table. She told me what happened after I left. Some people stood up for me. A woman named Sarah from my firm told my mother that what she'd done was wrong. Over the next 20 minutes, several people left the party. By 9:30, the room was mostly empty. We sat at Lily's table until past midnight. She asked me if I was okay. I thought about it and said, "I think I'm going to be. I'm not sure I'm there yet." In the morning, we talked about why I'd stayed in this situation for so long. I realized it was because of fear. I was afraid of admitting that I'd been wrong to stay, that all the years of managing my mother's intrusions had been a waste. I picked up my phone and saw all the missed calls. My father had texted me, asking for the insurance portal login. He'd also found a doctor's appointment I'd set up for my mother in the calendar and didn't know what it was. It hit me that I'd been doing so much for them for so long that they'd stopped noticing. Aunt Grace called me. She said she wasn't calling to ask me to come back. She just wanted me to know that what my mother said wasn't true. She asked if I was going somewhere. I told her I was moving to San Francisco. She said, "Good." That evening, I went home and sent my resignation email to my manager. I closed my laptop and sat in the quiet of my apartment. The next morning, I made coffee and drank it before it went cold. It was a small thing, but it felt like a big step. I moved to San Francisco and started my new job at Sterling Events. A few weeks later, my mother sent a voicemail. She said I'd embarrassed the family, but she also said she'd been trying to be honest. I deleted it. My father texted me, saying they were managing. I've thought a lot about what my grandmother said. The truth really does find a way out. And sometimes, that truth is the door to a new beginning. I walked through that door, and I'm not looking back.